Hello and welcome to another Random Code stream. I'm going to be doing some more work on this refactoring and talk a little bit about first some of the work that I did off camera, because in the last stream this fell apart because of the way my projects and the package are set up. So before I get into any of that, let me start that sweet background music. Hopefully I've got it the volume low enough that it's not going to be overpowering the voice. Okay, so to kind of explain what happened, and I kind of figured this was going to happen because I had an issue out, which is now closed, to do this, and I'd been avoiding it. There. Excuse me. When you have things like analyzers, suppressors, and source generators, those can all be in one project. If you have code fixes or refactorings, those have to be in a separate project. And it's basically because of the way things are loaded. And when I tried to make the refactoring thing in the project, that's when it finally came to a head. It said, nope, you can't do this. And I was running in all sorts of warnings and errors. So last stream I stopped and said, I'm going to do this. I finally did this. So it's all there now. So if you look at the project setup over here, you can see that we still have rocks, but now we have analysis, completions. So analysis is basically source generators, suppressors, and analyzers. Completions, I don't have any code fixes, but I do have now this refactoring. So that's where this goes. So that's all set now. Hey, Mitch. Yeah, it's cool that Mitch is on because he actually came up with a idea for some of the expectations with methods that have out parameters, which I'm not going to be talking about today, but glad he's here because you can see why I'm explaining it, why I'm explaining this and why I did this, because it does significantly change where things are. It didn't really change any of the behaviors per se. I already tested this package locally when it's built, and it seems to work just fine. It's just moving things around in different projects. So like the analysis is all the generator stuff, the suppressor stuff, and then this one is purely just the refactoring right now. And then this runtime is what somebody would need when they're running their tests. So this one is actually included in the bin directory when they run their code. The analysis one and the completions one, they won't be. So those are just like private assets. So so that's how everything is restructured. It's not 100% perfect because there's a couple things that I need to look at sharing stuff, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Excuse me. So now if you look at the rocks project, it's not a meta package because it doesn't necessarily take packages and put them in a package. It takes projects and put them in a package. Excuse me, I gotta drink some more coffee. Sometimes I get a tickle in my throat and it sucks. So you can see here that this has basically all the project stuff in it, or package stuff in it, I should say. And then down here, this is what determines what gets released in the package. So it's still the README license, but the analysis one is essentially put into .NET Standard in the analyzers package folder. The runtime and the XML comment file is handled by being put into the bin folder of the package. So yeah, this is kind of nice. Now, I got to make sure I do more testing before I do a 9.1 release, but this all seems to work. And this is allowing me now to have this refactoring. The one thing that I'm going to have to do first is I have a list of things to do is add this project to the package and see if that breaks anything, but hopefully not. Excuse me. So to explain what this refactoring is doing right now is it's going through it's looking to see if there's a specific parent from the node that it's on to go up to. And these are the ones that I've listed here. Yeah. And identifier name syntax actually is a nice one, because if you put it on an identifier name, it's going to hit right away. And so we get a symbol. If it's a name type symbol, we return it. If we get that, whoops. If we get that, then we are going to start to add, make sure the Rocks runtime using statement is there. The this one might have to change a little bit to get like the full namespace, but we add their namespace. We then get the syntax. We add it to the attributes list. And so if I look at my tests here, you can see that this weird syntax here is what their testing libraries look for, because that's essentially considered a non-valid set of or sequence of characters in C#. But what they do is, I'm imagining, is some pre-processing to say, if you put these in your source code for your test, that's essentially what you're saying. That's what I'm targeting with a cursor, or this is what I expect where a diagnostic is. And so in this case, I'm saying I expect that they highlighted the M. I could have just put this here, and it should still be the same thing. That's basically saying that's where my cursor is. And you can see with the fixed source, we get that rock attribute shown here. Now, of course, this is a first baby step. There's a lot more that I want to do here, and I'm probably not going to get it done all in this stream, but it does work now. If you can see, there's a green checkbox there. So this does work. This took some time, and I needed to get some help from people on how to get the code refactoring test. The test libraries that Microsoft provides for all this stuff is great, but they're woefully underdocumented, and it's really hard to figure out what you have to actually do to get things to work. So, I think I've got a good start to this. Now I want to move on and do more things. The first thing I'm going to do is what is probably the scariest part, which is we now need to add this project to the package. So, let's see, do I have anything I need to commit? Just some updates. Doesn't matter. That's what I love about branches. That's what I love about Git. It's amazing to think that, when did I start using Git? Was it 2013? Somewhere around there. That's when I started to get on projects that were using Git. And it took a little bit of time to get used to it, to get my head around it. But 12 years later, it's like, it's a de facto standard in my book. I don't know how I would function using another source control system if I had to. So they exist. I mean, people still use like Subversion and other things, but I've been in Git mode for so long, it's not even funny. And I did resist it just a tiny bit at the beginning because it was something new. And I've discovered in my career that usually something that I fall in love with or that I really appreciate is something that I resist right away. I don't know why. That just seems to be a truism in my life. Or selective bias, whatever you want to call it. So we've got this, and we need to now put it into this package. So what I want to do is say this is completions. And this one should be just like the analysis one. And let's actually move some of these down because they're becoming harder to see. The ones above are not as bad, but these are getting a little completions, pack, visible false. Okay, so now when we create a package, we'll have to look at the contents of the package and see if it makes sense. So let's clean, just build everything. I can use NuGet Package Explorer. There's NuGet.info, but that doesn't seem to work anymore. I don't know why. So if I say open a local package, that's the one I just made. Let's look in analyzers, .NET, C#. Hey, we got these two there. All right. And then you see we got our runtime here. So in all likelihood, this should work. What I could do is I also have, I made a test app, but what I want to do is let's take, I think I can just do some copy. I made a local NuGet server. So let's go in here. That's that. Let's take source, rocks, bin, debug, copy that. Where do I want to go? Documents, OneDrive. No, personal. No, that's... Here it is. Okay. Just took me a second to remember where I put it. Yeah, let's replace that. Okay, so then let's go into this repo. And this is just a local thing I made. So we've got that. We don't have anything referenced. We can even delete this just to make sure. I might put this in the rocks to say like, hey, if you make a local NuGet server, you could target it and test it if you want, but that's completely up to you. Okay, so now let's go open that. And what this should do is it's going to fail. No, yes, because we don't call it. So we should get should compile. We got our verification exception as we expect. And if we put this back in, it works. Okay, so that didn't break anything. I'm kind of curious. If I'm here, oh crap, it didn't do it. That's sad. So you see it's not putting the refactoring on it. So oops. I'm not sure why. Unless, wait a minute. Let me try something here real quick. Close this down. What I'm curious about is, yeah. Well, that's from 4 days ago. That's why it didn't show up. Good thing I remembered this. Yeah, exactly. Clear my NuGet cache. I totally, I was like, I probably put this one in here and that's from 4 days ago. So let's get rid of that. Okay, cool. Now let's go into 22 here. Oh, I could have just picked it from there. So actually now we got to see if it works the way I expect it to, because this should be the one that I did. So let's just make sure this runs. If I look in my cache now, yeah, now this is from today because it's 427. Okay, now let's go back to here, and do we get, hey, yeah, that does work. Yippee. Of course, it's going to put in one that I already have. I don't have that logic in there, and all that stuff, because again, baby steps, but the package works. That's smooth. That's cool. That does work. All right. So that was just a test to make sure that everything moved correctly. We got that in place. Let's come back here. Nope. Commit that. Added completions project to package. All right. So a side note with this too is I mentioned real quick that I need to have like shared packages. there's things in analysis and completions that I want to share. For example, in the refactoring, you notice I have a note here. I had this in here when I was doing this within the same project. This doesn't work anymore because this project doesn't have a reference to basically say, is the thing that you're looking at actually something that can be mocked? Because if it can't be, then don't offer the refactoring. That is something that I'm going to consider doing again, because it would be nice to do that. You know, refactorings aren't run until somebody does in Visual Studio, the control dot. And then refactorings are run, and then these can all come up and say, you know, and mine would only run if it says you hit a syntax node or a parent syntax node that I could possibly do this. Now I would need to run this to say, is that actually a valid target type? So to do that, what I'm going to probably have to have is, I want to put a note in here. Note to have a shared library for shared work. We'd want a rocks compilation package that both rocks analysis and rocks completions both reference. But then that needs to get tied into the package that I'd be producing as well, so that that is available for those two there. The packaging with source generators, analyzers, all this stuff is not easy. It's not as easy as just, hey, I want to make a class library and I want to make it a package. That's actually not too hard. But when you start throwing this stuff in there, you notice that there is all this like TFM specific package and referencing this and output assembly, and it just gets tricky as to where you have to put stuff. And I didn't come up with this myself. There was somebody who, I forget his name, but he has these like immediate projects, like immediate handlers, immediate other things. And he's done a lot of work as well with analyzers and the Roslyn stuff. So he had a lot of this already figured out. And so I basically used one of his project files as a template to basically come up with what I did here. So it's always good when you can use what other people do on their projects. So moving on, what do we got next? We did this. Oh, build type make. So what I want to do now is come here and I hope that refactoring was nice, because I found when I've used rocks, you know, that, and you know, Mitch being on the watching this, because I can see his comments, is I haven't received a lot of feedback because a lot of people, there's not a lot of people that use this library. So I've tried really hard to think about what would this feature or this thing look like for people to use, and try to step out of my head and go, how would people receive this? And in some ways I think I've done a decent enough job. In other ways I'm like, yeah, I didn't notice this, or I didn't think about this. And that only comes from more and more usage. That's why I'm glad that we've actually used it on a couple projects where I work at my day job, because I did, for overall people liked it, but there was like there's like 2 minor bugs that we found, and like 1 or 2 other things. It's like, maybe we could do this in the future. And that feedback is priceless. That feedback is so nice to get, because it's something that I just never considered or I never thought of. So I think when I've used rocks, that's one pain point, is you got to add that attribute, because source generators work with using for attribute with metadata name, Fonwen, or whatever they call it. But you really want to use an attribute as the source, the point of your starting point for your source generator, not just anything arbitrarily within a syntax tree. And unfortunately, that means then that you got to put that attribute in your code somewhere, and that can just be problematic. You know, just not problematic, just a pain, a little paper cut. And that's what this refactoring is attempting to do, is to remove the paper cut or make it much less painful. So one of the things too I want to get to is putting it in another file, but we'll get to that in a moment. This is, I want to have basically 3 registers of refactorings for create, a make, and then a creator make. So, and we'll get to rock partial in a moment. So what we could do is we could have a helper method, and we probably can make it a local method. Although this is getting to be quite extensive at this point. I'll have to break this up at some point. Let's just make this private stat. No. Oh, it's got to be at this level. Private static. Void add refactoring. So what we want to have here is string build types, string title, and so we'll pull all this in, and then yes, you don't know syntax node new root. I named type symbol mock type symbol. Oh, is this, wait a minute, this is a compilation unit syntax. There we go. And then we need the context. And the document, of course. Why don't you like create here? Wait. What's document up here? It's a document. Why do you have system reflection metadata up there? Okay, thank you. Yeah, well, it's like, no, get away. Why did it do that? That was really weird. Okay, so build type here. Build types. Build types. And then we want to put title here. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to say add rock attribute, factoring, add refactoring, where we put in build type create. What did I have in my close that one out. Generate. Yeah, naming is hard. Words are hard. What? I don't want this title to be too long because that's what you see pop up in your IDE. We'll just go with this for now. It could be better. Oh, and then I got to pass over all that crap. New root. Okay. And then we could have make here. Okay. And then we get rid of this. So this should now make 3. Okay. The issue is now with the test, I don't know what this is going to do. because this is going to create 3 sources. So this is going to be a little bit of playing. How do you actually get this to, well, let's just run it and see. It should probably fail now because it's going to say that there's, oh, it passed. Really? Really? That's actually really surprising. We are creating 3. These all register a new refactoring. I think I know why. Well, no, because when I pass in new root to each of these, when I create this attribute syntax, it's adding it and saying that's the new root within. Even though that's assigning it back to here, this is a new object. It's not by ref, so it doesn't change this one. I am really surprised this works. What happens if I change this to make? And now it fails. I'm wondering. Let's check out the source here. So I'm only giving one source. I'm wondering if it's just defaulting to saying the first source is the one it's looking at. It only compares to how many you actually give it. I know in analysis, the tests, there's things that I do. Because you could have more than that's analyzer, suppressor, generator. Yeah, generated sources. So you can see here, like when we have a create and we have a make, we have multiple here. Now if I go to this, I don't know, maybe what if I do that? Well, yeah, now I don't have to do this, but that doesn't work. Can I say test.test state sources.add? Can I say add range? Yes. Oh, wait a minute. I don't want to do it not on source. I want to do it on fixed source. Yeah, so if I take... No, that's not where I wanted that. If I take that off and I say test fixed state sources add range, what if I say add? That works. For each of our fixed source in is, we'll have to change the name up here. Okay, so then that's going to break our test here. Really? Huh. Collection expressions are weird. I mean, I like them. They're also weird at times. Like, I didn't expect that to work, but it did. Let's have create fixed source here. Make fixed source. And create and make fixed source. No, it'll type make. So then here we would have create fixed source, make fixed source. How's this going to fail? Badly. Expected new states. I can't read this. Hate that. I hate that window. Code refactoring application expected new state sources and update documents to be equal. The new state sources contains 3 documents, and updated documents contains 1 document. Sure. I gotcha. What does that mean? Those are the fixed state. Test. No. Markup options. Generated sources? I have no idea. I've never used this specific one. And again, trying to find the answer to this is going to be quite difficult. It is interesting that it thinks that when I just have one, like it'll go 1 and 1, and that's fine. I mean, it's not uncommon to have a refactoring that can give you multiple options. I just don't know how to... Oh, wait a minute. Do I have that? Not here. That ain't it. I doubt that this is gonna, because I think those assemblies didn't exist, or those packages didn't exist. So this test here is me literally writing this all by hand, and not using the test libraries. So there would be 2 change documents. And I think that's what this test is saying. I just can't figure out where. You say that gets collection transformation functions apply to doing a... No, that's... Test code sets the input source file for an analyzer code fix test. Test state. Don't need additional files. Generated sources is what I just added. I don't know offhand. I have to probably look this up later because I don't know how you say yeah, how do I want to say this? I don't know offhand which thing on the test here you set to say that this is what I expect this to do. And so the error that I got was expected, well, yeah, don't look at it here. And that's kind of the thing that sucks a little bit about this is you get to this point, and then all this is within the how do you, yeah, basically, how do you tell it that there's two or that there's three possible outcomes with the refactoring? I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. So what could I do right now? I could add more tests. That would be fine. This one will have to defer for now on the to-do list. So what I'm going to do is just sort of back this out. Let's make this so that we just have that back here. Don't make that an array. So until I really know what I'm doing here, oh, okay. So now if I run this, we should get back to passing, which we do. Okay. Hey, Zaid. So I'm just going to leave this for now. Let's just add some tests and get more around this. And I might have to come back to these tests and refactor them as well once I add in more options for the refactoring. But what I want to add here is basically a number of tests. So we have interface here. Yeah, so we can do one for identifier name. And in this case, what I want to have here is, we'll call this, we'll make it a class. And again, we're not verifying that this is public virtual void. Okay, so now what we want to have is public static class, knockable user. Static void use, we don't care. Mockable m is equal to new. what I want is to say the cursor is there, because that's an identifier name. What that should do is take all of this, put it down here, and then have mockable up there. Did that do what I thought it should do? Hey, it did. Nice. So that's cool. So we have identifier. What's the order of how I find these? I forget. Identifier, class, interface. So let's do the class one next. In a record. Okay. So class. The one that, yeah. I'd just like to be ordered. Okay. So this time we're going to have a class. That's mockable, virtual, void, public. So then that goes down here. And this becomes mockable. That works. Records. Class interface. Wait, do I have identifier name, class, interface. Let's do record. We also want to do one that's a negative, where I have it on something that it will never find it. I think I can do that by putting it on namespace. Record. So we can say record here. And you can add that on there. And so that should work. No, it didn't. Oh, because I forgot to change that. All right, cool. By the way, if you're watching my channel for the first time and you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. I would greatly appreciate it. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers as my first goal, and I'm getting close. So any new subscription would help. So thank you in advance for doing that. I had a thought go through my head, but whatever. Okay, so we have record there. Parameter syntax. So in this case, let's go back to being an interface. So we have an interface. Public static void use I am mockable. And we don't care what that does, but what we do care is that you have your cursor. Whoops. Yeah. Okay. So what this should do Yep, cool. That works. And object creation expression syntax. This one's going to be fun because I'm going to try a little trick here, because the C# parser is actually, and when it creates the tree and the models and everything, it's very resilient to errors. It will try to do as much as it possibly can, even though it will still report errors. You'll see what I mean in a second. Creation. So in here we're going to say var x is equal to new I am mockable. Now, actually, because you're like, you can't new up an interface, and you're correct. You can't do that. This code is incorrect. But what the trick I want to do here is I want to say, hey, you could do this. Do your control dot, which would bring up the refactoring. It's not going to do it here. But then that would make the attributes show up. And then you just come in here and hit like C, and then the completion thing for IntelliSense to go, ah, yes, creation expectations. And so it would, boom, put it there. So that's kind of the trick I'm trying to see if I can get away with here. Now, the thing that's interesting about this is that this might actually, I got to look for a second. This might work, but for the wrong reason. And the reason I say that is because this might actually be picking up the identifier name. So if I come back here, do I do a new anywhere in here? No, I don't. So if I say like var x is equal to new GUID, and I go into the syntax visualizer, you'll notice that it's on an identifier name here. The whole creation expression is all of this. So if I highlight all of that, that's the actual object creation expression. And this is something I had to change. I didn't mention it here, but one of the things I needed to change is when I go through this looking up to the parent is first looking at the self, the thing that you're giving it, because that might be the identifier name. That might be an object creation syntax. And that's what you want to find first. If you don't find it, now start going up the hierarchy and seeing if you can find something that's close. So what I could do is say, given what we just learned, is move that to here and that to here. Now, if you do this trick that I just mentioned, that's the plan, you're going to be on an identifier name here, and that's what it's actually going to pick up first. I just want to see, with the object creation, does it pick up all of it? This might be actually a case where I remove, because why would you highlight all this when you could just put your cursor on that, the type name, and it would work just fine. So, but let's just see if this works. I failed. Cannot create any. Oh, it's failing. Yeah. Okay. That's fine-ish. It's failing because it's actually trying to compile it. And it's doing the right thing, which is saying you can't compile that. Within a test, that's correct. Within real-world usage, we're probably going to be able to get away with it because it will pick up it's an object creation, or at least try, even though it's not correct. Again, let me show you what I mean. If I put in, I could do it down here. That's fine. And I say public interface IA. It doesn't matter what it is. Okay. Yeah. You don't like being. Should put it in its own file. That's fine. But what I want to show is if I say like var e is equal to new IA, that's obviously an error. But if I go look at the syntax visualizer and I highlight this, you'll see that it considers it to be a creation expression. And if I say view the type symbol, you'll notice that it is IA. So that does work. It's just to do this as a test this way isn't going to work. But what I can do is just say, fine, we'll make this a class. We'll say you're mockable, public, virtual, void, do. Put that in here because that's allowed. And this is purely just to get around the thing with the test here that's going to try to compile the code. And again, I might drop this as an option to look for because I don't anticipate a lot of people doing this. Okay, so now that passed. All right, so we got that passing, and now we need one more to say run when cursor will not find valid parent. So in this case, we don't care about this. Test namespace. So now in this case, it shouldn't do anything. Yeah. So might have to change this to being fixed sources. And then say for each var fixed source in fixed sources. Oh, we got to put that back up there. Test fixed state sources dot add fixed source. Ah, yes. So you did pick up on all these. What do you do here? You failed. Expected refactoring test to specify the refactoring result in fixed state. What does it do with these? These still work. This one doesn't like it if you God, why do you no test? Is there a way you can say that basically I expect oh, okay, so maybe what we could do is say if fixed sources length is equal to 0, then we say it doesn't do anything. I don't know, I'm guessing. Nope, that didn't work. Expected the refactoring test to specify a refactoring result. Fix. Grr. I don't know. I'm not sure. Expected the refactoring test to specify the refactoring result in fixed state. But there is none. That's kind of the point here, is I want to say Yeah, I don't know how to do this right now. I'm going to keep this in here this way for now. And keep that's a failing test. But I'm going to have to do some more digging off camera to figure out how do I do this so that it didn't offer a refactoring. Oh, wait a minute. That's an identifier name, isn't it? Well, that would be a problem. Now, if I do this, that's a namespace keyword, which is not a, that's not that. That goes up to file scope namespace declaration. Goes up to, so maybe if we just put it on namespace, maybe I've been fighting the wrong thing. So we actually have it on there. Now what will this do? It failed. Okay, so the refactoring result maybe now. No, we still do this. Let's just make sure that I'm actually getting through to the point that I thought I was supposed to get to. Oh, is this? It's an action. That's not what it is. Okay, well, I don't know. I'm going to keep this in here, but I'm not sure. Cat, which C language do you prefer? C, C++, C Sharp, and Y? That's a loaded question. I would say I prefer C Sharp because I haven't done C or C++ in decades, literally. So I can have no, I have no context to give you. I haven't used, the last time I used C was for my master's thesis, and that was in 1995. I'm showing my age here, but that is the last time I did it. I never did C++ other than one project. That was in 2001. And that's when I was a consultant, and I said to the team, you know, that if we use C++, that's fine, but I said I don't want to have 20 different ways to make a string. Let's keep things consistent so that even somebody who's not a C++ programmer like me can make heads and tails of this. And we did. We actually, we had a really good, clean, consistent solution, and I was actually able to get stuff done and work on that. But again, that was 24 years ago, so I haven't touched C++ since. So I don't know. I can't answer that question. I would pick C# just because that's the language I use the most. You know, so we have more tests in here. I think this test is correct now, and that it's looking at, it's got it here. So whatever it reaches up into, it won't find a syntax node that we're looking for. I just can't get the test to work to say, hey, it shouldn't have anything in it. I have to do some research on that. So we kind of got stuck on both of these. This one, look for any nodes. This is one that we need to do, but I need to work on this one first. The reason I say that is because I want to. There should be a way, especially with source generators, you can use either editor config settings or build properties. And you can see here with the context and a source generator, you can get like global options, try get value, and say, hey, was this set? And if it was, get the value. And the reason I want to do this is because I want people to have the option of putting a property in their project to say, like, my generator, or like rocks underscore target attribute file or something like that. And then you put in a path to where you want to have your file, because like if you look at my project here for the integration tests, I have one file that I put all of my rock attributes in, and that's what I did on some other projects I do at work, and that's where they all end up. It would be nice to not only be able to generate this attribute, but have it be put into the file that you're specifying in a some type of setting. So the default would be it's in the file that you currently have your cursor. But what I could do is say, if you put that in there, no, go find that file and do the work in there. And what that ends up also having as a side effect, or even in something that I'm doing here, is 1 or 2 lines. One thing I struggle with is getting the right amount of space so that when the refactoring runs, that it wasn't doing this, that it does that. But it should only do that if there's any nodes beyond the attribute lists that are there. If there aren't, well, then don't put in an extra line there to separate it off of what's the rest of the content that's within the document. So yeah, I had to figure that out a little bit and play with that. But that's something I got to get to, is to say, if there's content after, then put an extra line in there. Otherwise, don't. So, but I want to wait until I figure out the configuration thing. So I have made definite progress. This partial one is something I want to do too, but I'm going to wait on that for a little bit. The last thing I want to look at in this stream is covariance and contravariance. This isn't even a thing with the refactoring, but I don't know if I've ever explicitly done anything with co and contravariance. And what I mean by that is, how can I bring this up? So if I go to the definition of list here, and I go to iList specifically, that, what, in what world does that go to uint of 64? Really? What the hell? Source dot iList. Oh, it's not. I thought it was. I thought it was core contravariant. And to be honest, C#. This shows you how little I do this. So yeah, what happens if I set something like this? You know what? We can just do that real quick. Because this will work fine as a test. Let's just grab this. Five segment generates a compiler error. Void set something. Because out is outside and then int is in. So what happens if I say covariant? var c expectations is equal to new I covariant create. Oh, I got to save the file because they changed Visual Studio that source generators aren't run until you save the thing that has it in there. And then we say string. C expectations, methods, get something, return value, hi. Var cmock console right line cmock. What does this do? Runs. Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make... What do I actually do to build this? What's actually the mock type? Yeah, I don't specify out or in here. I just say it's this interface that has an out of R. So I guess it just all falls through and works. Sure. Okay. Whatever. I would have been surprised if I got to this point with this project. And of course I say that I'm going to get cursed. That I would have never run into a core contravariance problem yet. But maybe there is. Maybe there is with rocks. So I don't know. It just seems like there isn't. So with this stream I need to do some more research. I need to do my research. And find out some more things to... Well, we did add more tests. That part is done. Well... Maybe more as I add more features. So we did actually get some done here. There. But to add build type make, I did, but I don't have tests for it, so I don't really consider that to be... so let's put that in there. When multiple refactorings are offered. Project configuration. That one. Rock partial should be interesting because I want to put... only needs to be on the interface. Right. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. It doesn't need to trickle through into the subclass. You're right. Okay. Yeah. So never mind. So the rock partial one would be nice because if you actually create a partial class and you're on that class definition, you could then offer up a refactoring to say, put the rock partial attribute on that, because in that case, a rock partial only works on a partial class definition. And so it put the attribute on it. And then that just basically dictates the name of your expectations type. That's all it really does. So in the cases where you really want to have control over what the name of, instead of saying I create expectation, I interface create expectations, you could have just IA, and that's your partial type. And then rock partial, the attribute on that type says that for my iQuux interface, it's going to be this partial type, and then rocks fills out everything within that partial class. So I want to do that here as well. That's just a different path. I have to say, well, if you're on a partial class, you could also be offering up, I want to make, because I might have a partial class for other reasons that have nothing to do with this. And so I want to still make the rock attribute, but I might want to also have the option of putting the rock partial there too. So that would be another one to do. But I'll get to that one later. So at this point, I'm going to stop the stream. And I want to say really quickly again, if you're watching for the first time and you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. I'd greatly appreciate it, as I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers as my first goal, and I'm getting close. So any new subscription would help. So thank you in advance for doing that. I'm going to do some research off the side and look some of this stuff up to see if I can get it to actually work the way I want it to. And then I will probably do another stream this week, sometime in the morning. I don't know when, depending on how I feel and if I wake up and I'm not tired. But we'll see. I am doing some gaming streams. I have been playing Alien Isolation all weekend because it's Alien Day weekend, 426, LV 426, if you know, you know. And I've been trying to get all of the ID tags and Nostromo logs. So I think I'm about 2/3 of the way done. So I think I should be able to finish today and get the rest of them. So that's what I'm doing today. Space Marine 2 with my older son and his friend is going to be 7 p.m. Tuesday night. We think we're going to be able to get done this Tuesday. If not, we'll do one more next Tuesday. Thursday picks up Splinter Cell Blacklist and trying to get through that. And yeah, that's the upcoming schedule. So hope to see you in a future stream. And with that, I'm going to stop this stream. Thank you all for watching. Take care, and I hope to see you in the future.